our board of directors. I am introducing myself. So first board of director I would like to present is your treasurer, David Bibbey.
Something to say.
Something to say. Dry needling?
Okay.
Absolutely.
So I have to agree with Sandra. For an industry that from time to time we hear that you can't herd cats, all I can say is meow. You see, the board doesn't lie. When we're compelled to come together to promote and protect the profession and really stand up for what we think is right, it's not all that difficult to get on the same page. So I really want to thank everybody who responded to the call and provided financial support, because there's just sometimes, when you run out of words in discussion, then you're left with attorneys and accountants, to really make our case for us. So we've been working with Rutledge and Cena, who's a law firm in Tallahassee. We're familiar with them because the lobbyists for FSOMA are associated with that law firm, and they're an administrative law group. And they were more than happy to pick up the fight for us and make the case, as we had to do in July before the administrative judge, that, in our opinion, rule promulgation that provided for dry needling was something that the Board of Physical Therapy Practice should have deferred to the legislature on. And that certainly boards have lots of power to provide oversight to a profession, but we just thought that the way that the rule was developed was just a little bit beyond their mandate. But it's one thing to say it, it's another thing to prove it. And we had 2 days before Judge Stevenson up in Tallahassee to make the case. And there were certainly FSOMA represented the profession of acupuncture members and the profession at large. And opposing that was, of course, the Board of Physical Therapy Practice, the Assistant Attorney General's Office for the Department of Health, and the Florida Physical Therapy Association. So, they were going to take us to every task necessary to prove our case. But I think over the course of a couple of days, we had an opportunity to really work with the attorneys and help demonstrate what types of arguments were needed to establish the fact in law that this rule, as prepared, is not valid, or as the challenge is written, is the invalidity of the rule. So we have a few details to finish up over the summer with the judge, including a brief, which is a summary of the case in chief, the case in fact, and then he will decide sometime after October 1st, and I imagine before the end of the year, although it's not impossible for this to drift into 2019, but he'll decide whether or not the rule is valid or invalid, and if it's invalid, it'll be struck down or not adopted, and then we'll have to wait and watch and see how the physical therapy practice profession moves forward on the question as to whether or not they're going to move this into the legislative space and start talking to legislators about new statutory language to amend their Practice Act. That's how this, in our opinion, should have been done in the first place. And so they may come to that decision based on how the judge comes down on it. It's been an amazing experience for me, both as an acupuncturist, but as a board member and treasurer, to try to shepherd this question forward on behalf of our members and work with the lawyers and other partners that we have around the country to try to bring forward the best case possible in Florida. And from what I hear from around the country and people who travel is that at this point in time, Florida is really being looked at very closely by other states and other professional associations as a model for how we conducted ourselves in our response. It has to be done in a very specific way, and we followed that by dotting every I, crossing every T as best we could to make sure that the question about whether or not the rule will stand or fall, we made the very best case we could. And put everything that we could in front of the judge where he will make a decision of fact. It's not a question of deciding whether or not dry needling is acupuncture, or who can do acupuncture, who can use an acupuncture needle. It's a very narrow legal argument about the correctness and properness of moving forward with making a rule. And that's really where we stand. Ultimately we don't have control of what other professions do, but there are processes. The processes are there to protect the public, protect professions, and our responsibility as a profession in this matter was to hold them accountable for saying, if you want to do this, there's a right and wrong way to do it. We believe you're going about it incorrectly, and we want to put you on a proper footing and path to do that. In the meantime, we're here to protect and promote the interests of acupuncturists and protect the public as best we see fit. And I really commend the membership and the profession at large for stepping up and agreeing with that simple premise and putting forth the money necessary to get this legal fight into the court. I'm going to be back asking for more money because, as a profession, it's not a one and done. There's more work to do, even on the very case that we're discussing. But I would want to say a lot of heavy lifting has been done. A lot of money's been raised. But if you've made a single donation, I'd ask that you take a look at your, what's possible for monthly support for the effort, at least through the end of the year. But know that, nobody's being, careless or not being cautious with every dollar spent. It's earmarked very specifically to make sure that we get the outcome that the profession is looking for. So thank you very much. I'm here all weekend. If anybody has any specific questions about how we pursued this, I welcome you to approach me and we'll talk about it.
Thanks, David. You're not done yet, so hold on to this. On behalf of the board, FSOMA, and the membership, we want to thank David. We got him a plaque for his dedication. He has done how many hours of work? I mean, it's taken between his professional life, his personal life, anyone that's been involved in any kind of a legal situation, it just takes a lot of focus, a lot of concentration, a lot of time, a lot of dedication, a lot of commitment. And David really stepped up and just taking this case and just running with it, and the incredible trust that we have in him and the legal team that we have, and really the whole board coming behind and really supporting him, and the membership coming behind, and all acupuncturists that stepped up. So this is in recognition of all the work you've done, and we're just so proud of you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.